Hi everybody, very welcome to Mentor, yet another video podcast. As always, I hope you're doing absolutely fantastic out there. So today on the podcast, guys, will pilots disappear? Will they be taken over by artificial intelligence? Will we see pilotless aircraft flying around the skies in the very near future? Stay tuned. Right guys, I've decided to make this video about pilotless aircraft and the possibility of the pilot job disappearing due to an overwhelming demand from you guys, from the watchers, from the viewers of the channel. There was quite a lot of concern because a Boeing executive just came out with some statements just before the Paris Air Show here in 2017 saying that Boeing was looking into the possibility of creating a pilotless aircraft. So the questions were, is it worth going into this industry? Should I be spending all of this money on training if it's going to be taken over by Terminator anyway? Right guys, so I want to explain this, and I'm going to be very clear with saying that this is my view, okay? This is my view of how things are going to develop, but when it comes to pilotless aircraft, there's a couple of things that you have to understand. First of all, you have to understand what a modern pilot actually do. Now, there's a huge misconception among people out there, among the traveling public, that what pilots are actually doing nowadays are just basically pushing a button and then the computers fly the aircraft. Now, I cannot tell you how insulting and how big of a misunderstanding that actually is, okay? Right, so it is true that a modern airline pilot probably does not do as much kind of stick and rudder flying like we did back in the 60s and 70s, all right? We have a fairly advanced autopilot system that can do that for us, okay? But what we mean by that is basically the inputs to the flight controls, okay? Flying the aircraft is the combination of everything. It's the combinations of inputs of external factors, small decisions that you have to take on basically a second basis. We're talking hundreds of decisions on just a completely normal flight without any incidents happening, okay? Changes in wind speed, changes in runway, changes in temperatures, different routings. All of these little things are things that we are constantly taking into account. And then we're telling the autopilot what it's doing. All right, the autopilot is completely stupid. Without our input, without our knowledge and our experience, the autopilot could not, and I can repeat this, could not do the flight. All right. The best way of comparing it to something would be to, you know, the kind of speed control switch that you have on your car, if you have a modern car, that you can sitting there at 120 kilometers per hour and you press that and it keeps 120 kilometers per hour, even if it's uphill or downhill, it's braking and stuff like that. Some of them are so advanced they can even make sure that you keep the distance to the car in front of you, and you know, in some extreme cases they actually have radars as well that would warn you about, you know, an animal at the side of the road. Now, the assumption that people are doing when they say that, well, you know, how hard can it be to make a pilotless aircraft? They're not doing anything anyway. That assumption is equivalent to you going out, sitting inside of your car in your garage, pressing that button and expecting it to take you where you're going. All right, that is basically exactly the same, right? Yes, the systems are slightly more advanced, but it's also in 3 dimensions. Yes, we do have VNAV, you know, an FMS system that calculates when we have to start slowing down and when we have to start descending in order to have the most effective angle down to our runway. But it doesn't do anything, it doesn't take any decisions, it doesn't understand what it's doing, okay? It cannot configure the aircraft, it doesn't know when it should be configuring earlier or later. It just handles and works on the inputs from the pilot. Okay, so what does this actually mean? Well, this means that there are 2 ways of getting rid of the pilots in the cockpit. One is taking the pilots out of the cockpit and putting them into a control center on the ground. That could probably be done. I know that there is an experiment being done with a jet stream in the UK where they're doing exactly that. They have a remote control aircraft specifically flying with the pilot down on the ground. Now, you would ask yourself why, you know, what kind of benefit would come out of that? You still need the pilot. They're just sitting in a physically different place. Right, so that would be the one place, okay? And using that system, the UK CAA have predicted that there might be as many as 20% of the aircraft in controlled airspace, 20% of aircraft in controlled airspace flying by 2050. All right, so that's the prediction of the UK CAA, right? Now, so that's one thing. Okay, but what Boeing was referring to, and what I think most of you guys are thinking about, is completely pilotless aircraft, as in aircraft that are flying themselves. Now, in order for that to happen, we need artificial intelligence. All right, we need a computer that knows about its own existence, that wants to protect its own existence, that can take autonomous decisions based on its own experience and learn from it. Right, that's artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence does not exist today. Okay, it probably won't exist tomorrow, and probably not within the next 5-10 years. It will probably exist at some point, but it doesn't exist. All right, so that's one of the problems facing. And if you read the actual statement from that Boeing executive, he was stating that they had no idea how to satisfy the safety demands, like what happened to Captain Sully in New York. Okay, he had no idea how they were going to fix that, and that tells you a little bit about what kind of a statement this was, right? More of a grab attention than anything else. So let's say now, let's just play with the idea that artificial intelligence is being developed, and tomorrow it is here. Let's call the artificial intelligence Albert, right? So tomorrow the computer Albert is here. He has artificial intelligence, so he understands how to take decisions. We can teach him to fly and all of that. Now, the first obstacle that we are going to come up to is integrating him into the technology and actually developing a completely new type of aircraft that is going to be flown by Albert and not have any pilots. Now, in order to make a completely new aircraft, the aircraft manufacturers today needs approximately 10 years, maybe 15 years. Okay, just to make the new aircraft type. Now, after those 10 to 15 years, this aircraft is going to have to be certified. Now, to certify a new aircraft today is fairly straightforward. Well, it takes years to do it, but at least you have some very, very simple rules to follow. In order for an aircraft that's going to be flying around with passengers without pilots, you are going to have to rewrite all of the rules and regulations surrounding civil air transport in all countries that this aircraft is going to be flying with. Now, that is probably going to be handled by ICAO, but all of the member states are going to have to agree on the rules. Now, I cannot overemphasize how big of a work that would be. How much time that would have to be put into just making the legislative changes needed in order for this aircraft to ever leave the ground with passengers. I would estimate, now this is only my estimation, but maybe another 10 to 15 years of legislation, something around there. So now we're up to 30. So now we're actually approaching that 2050 that the UK CAA was talking about. All right. So let's say now that Albert's aircraft has been made, the legislative changes are in place. Now, the next hurdle is we're going to need to get passengers to fly with this aircraft. Now, it might sound easy, but if you think about it, would you want to fly with an aircraft that didn't have any kind of human interacting with the controls? Probably not. Probably not today. Now that might change when you've gotten to know Albert a little bit and he's been driving your car for a while and stuff like that. But at the moment, we don't even have driverless trains, right? And you would think that a train that is moving along a track at a set speed would be the easiest way or the easiest thing in the world to automate. But we haven't done that either. So that might be for a different part reason, might be unions involved in it and everything like that, but it is likely that it is a combination of technology. It's just too expensive to get to redo the technology, and the traveling public not trusting the computers. Probably because there's no artificial intelligence there either, right? So we are going to have to teach the traveling public that it is perfectly safe to fly this without the pilot. This means that this Albert aircraft is going to have to fly completely flawlessly, as in completely flawlessly for the entire test period and for the first couple of years after launch. Right, so now we're up to 2050, Albert is flying. Now we come to the next hurdle. The next hurdle is the cost of implementing this. Okay, we've talked about a lot of costs when it comes to the aircraft manufacturers and the legislation so far, but now we're talking to the airlines. Now, airlines does not like costs. They like cost saving, they don't like costs, okay? They like flying their aircraft that they have already bought. Their existing fleets are going to be valued at many, many hundreds of millions of dollars. And in order for them to change those, that's going to be a very extended time period. It might be that every aircraft that goes out of service is going to be replaced by an Albert aircraft. But even that, if you think about how long the 757 has been off the production line and how many are actually still flying, you get a sense to how long this is going to take. So yes, eventually then Albert aircraft is going to be kind of fed into the system, and eventually once all of the old aircraft have been phased out, they might be replaced by the Albert aircraft. But believe me, I will be long retired and long gone by then. My kids will probably be retired, but my grandchildren might be affected by this. This is my prediction. I think that for me, I'm not at all worried, right? For you who's training now, you probably shouldn't be worried as well. You will probably see some absolutely fantastic changes to aircraft technology and to automation, okay? But there are going to be pilots there to handle this automation. But maybe your grandchildren maybe shouldn't be pilots. But to be perfectly honest, and now I'm going a little bit out on the line here, is when we have artificial intelligence, when Albert is flying the aircraft, there's so many jobs out there that is going to be taken over by robots that we're looking at a society that looks completely different from anything that we can imagine now. Very few jobs are safe when it comes to automation once we have artificial intelligence actually working for us. So, you know, guys, don't worry about it. That's basically the point I want to make for this video. Right guys, I hope you liked that one. I hope that answered some of your questions. I hope you feel a little bit better. That's always my aim with doing these videos. I hope you're following me on Instagram, on YouTube, and also consider becoming a Patreon. I have a I have a group of people on Patreon that are supporting the channel. They're doing a great job by previewing my videos, by telling me what I like, what I should be doing more or less of. But there's also some other nice stuff that's going to come down the pipeline for my Patreons very soon. So consider signing up to Patreon. You will be supporting the channel. It will mean that there's more material coming up, and you'll be doing the channel a great favor. For now, I'm hoping all of you are having an absolutely fantastic day wherever you are. Stay tuned, make sure that you've subscribed if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.